It was one of those crisp late October mornings in Oak Ridge, Georgia, when the air feels like polished glass and the streets are quiet, except for the sound of money being made. Madeline Grant stepped out of her pearl-white Range Rover, her silk scarf catching a little breeze as she headed toward the gleaming glass facade of Grant Prestige Motors. This was her family's empire, 3 generations of luxury dealerships, the kind of place where a single sale could cover someone's yearly salary. At 33, Madeline was the golden child, groomed to take over from her father, Charles Grant. She'd inherited his sharp business instincts, and unfortunately, his very firm ideas about who belonged where in America. As she crossed the showroom, she glanced toward the service bay rows of mechanics in navy uniforms bent over Bentleys, Porsches, and Astons. Most were black or Latino men, their hands moving with precision over machines worth more than most houses. Madeline's gaze slid over them without warmth. She leaned toward her assistant Trish. "Remind me why we hire so many from unconventional backgrounds. I'm sure we could find techs with more polish." Trish shifted, uncomfortable. "They're some of the best in the state, and they work for competitive rates. Reasonable rates for reasonable work," Madeline cut in. "Our clients expect a certain standard." That was Madeline, every interaction framed by the idea that pedigree and performance were linked, that cultural fit mattered as much as skill. Out in the bay, a young mechanic named Darius Cole caught her eye, not because she admired his work, but because something in his quiet focus rubbed her the wrong way. 28 black, a wiry frame under a grease-stained uniform, Darius was bent over the hood of a vintage Rolls, hands moving like he was born with a wrench in them. Her father's voice broke her thoughts. "That's Cole," he said, glancing out the office window. "Been here a couple years. Knows his way around an engine, I guess. But does he understand the value of what he's touching?" "Hard to say." Madeline nodded like she agreed. To her, people like Darius were proof the world was too generous with opportunities. 3 weeks later, life had other plans. Madeline was late for a pitch meeting with high-profile investors. She was behind the wheel of her father's pride and joy, a silver Maserati Quattroporte, when the dashboard lit up with warnings and the engine coughed like a smoker on his last breath. She barely coasted to the shoulder before it died completely. She sat there tapping her phone for roadside assistance traffic roaring past. She was already calculating the damage 30 minutes late would sink the deal. Then a dusty pickup pulled in behind her. The door opened and out stepped Darius, toolbox in hand. "Of all people, Ms. Grant, car trouble?" he asked, voice steady, eyes scanning the Maserati like a surgeon studying an X-ray. "I've called for a tow," she said quickly. "They'll be here soon." "Tow'll take an hour in this traffic," he replied. "Mind if I take a look? Might be something simple." She hesitated, accepting his help, felt like admitting she'd been wrong about him. But the clock was ticking. "Fine," she said, "but this isn't like the cars you usually work on." A flicker of something amusement maybe passed across his face. "Metal's metal. Electricity's electricity." 5 minutes later, he straightened up. Alternator belt snapped. "Loose battery connection too. I can fix the connection now, and I've got a belt in my truck that'll get you to your meeting." She stared. A belt. "This car has the most advanced engineering. Even the best engines run on basics," he said, gently walking her through the repair as though she were a curious apprentice. His hands were sure fast. 15 minutes later, the Maserati purred like nothing had happened. When she reached for her purse, he waved it off. "Just get to your meeting. That's payment enough." As she drove away, her head spun. For the first time, the idea that she'd underestimated someone didn't feel abstract, it had a face. In the days that followed, she found herself noticing Darius more. How he coached a younger mechanic through a tough repair instead of just taking over. How he greeted customers by name, explaining issues in plain English without a hint of condescension. Then one afternoon, she caught him under the hood of a battered Corolla, not a customer's car, but one belonging to Sophia, the cleaning lady. He was speaking to her in fluent Spanish, telling her he could fix the leak for $30 instead of the $400 another shop had quoted. My grandfather taught me, he told Madeline when she asked why he'd bother, that skills are gifts meant to be shared. Competence without compassion, that's just selfishness. She found out more top of his class at community college, certified in European luxury vehicles, taking night classes in mechanical engineering at the University of Georgia. Spoke German and Italian so he could read technical manuals. Volunteered teaching teens automotive basics and helped families with budgeting through his church. None of it fit the box she'd kept him in. The night that broke her open came on a rain-slick Thursday. Her phone rang at 2:47 a.m., her father's voice frantic. Maddie, it's your sister. Liv's been in an accident. Cars flipped near University Parkway. They can't get her out. Madeline flew through the downpour to a scene lit by flashing lights. Liv's sedan was on its roof at the bottom of an embankment crumpled like foil. And there, soaked to the bone, was Darius directing firefighters wedged halfway under the wreck, calculating angles like a man born for this moment. He was a volunteer firefighter, they told her, knew the structural design of that model better than anyone on site. While she stood frozen, he crawled into the mangled frame, voice steady as he spoke to Liv. You're gonna be fine. Just stay still for me. For 45 minutes, he orchestrated the rescue, placing supports, cutting metal in precise spots, pulling her free without collapsing the roof. When they loaded Liv into the ambulance, banged up but alive, Madeline walked to him, rain running down her face. You saved her life. I don't even know how to thank you. He just shook his head. Because that's what you do when someone needs help. Doesn't matter who they are. The next Monday, she asked him to step into her office. I owe you more than thanks, she began. I owe you an apology. I've treated you unfairly. I made assumptions based on nothing but prejudice I inherited. You've shown me more character and skill than anyone in my so-called peer group. She laid out her plan and the unspoken policy of steering certain customers away from certain mechanics. Assign jobs based on expertise. Create mentorship programs. Recommend him for service manager when the current one retired. He listened quietly. That's a big change. Some people won't like it. Then they can leave, she said. I'm done confusing privilege with merit. She didn't have to wait long for a test. Mrs. Whitmore, a country club acquaintance, rolled in with her Porsche and insisted that the black mechanic not touch it. Mrs. Whitmore, Madeline said, smiling just enough to be sharp. Darius is the most qualified technician we have for European luxury vehicles. If that's a problem, I can recommend other dealerships. Mrs. Whitmore grudgingly agreed. She left raving about the service. 3 weeks later, Madeline stood at the podium of the Oak Ridge Business Awards, supposed to praise her father's legacy. Instead, she told the room about the night her sister's life hung in the balance and who had saved it. She admitted her prejudices, announced new merit-based policies, and named Darius assistant service manager. Half the room applauded. The other half looked like they'd bitten into lemons. Her parents were livid. Friends whispered. Clients left. But others came drawn by a place where excellence was recognized no matter the package it came in. 6 months later, under Darius's leadership, the service department had record-high satisfaction scores. Employee morale soared. They were winning awards for inclusive hiring. And Madeline, she was different. She'd built new friendships, ones not bound by her old bubble. She'd learned to see beyond the surface, to spot the spark in people who'd once been invisible to her. One evening, she found Darius in the bay, surrounded by teenagers from the community center explaining hybrid engines. One kid grinned at her. He says it's like having two power sources that work together perfectly. Madeline smiled. That's exactly how it should be, because sometimes the person you underestimate the most is the one who ends up saving everything you thought you understood about worth character and what it means to lead. So now I want to hear from you. Have you ever judged someone before knowing their story? And if you found out you were wrong, did you have the guts to admit it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm ready for this one to get real.